Oh, that's not where I want us to be. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to Excel Beyond the Basics. This is the Shasta-Cascade Small Business Development Center, a nonprofit organization. We provide confidential, no-cost advisory and training services for small businesses. We're sponsored by the U.S. Small Business Administration and the HSU Sponsored Programs Foundation. This is no-cost expert advice. And the beauty of these webinars is you don't have to be in our area to benefit from what we're sharing, but we do support specifically Shasta and Trinity County in far northern California. If you are in our area, you can meet with one of these advisors, or there are more than 40 others that you can also talk with about advancing your company in specific areas. We are here to help. This is paid for with your tax dollars, so it's no charge to you. And I'll start off with our disclaimer. The information provided in this webinar and any supplementary materials provided to registrants are intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, or legal advice. No registrant should act or fail to act on the basis of any material contained in this webinar without obtaining proper financial, legal, or other professional advice specific to their situation. The Northern California Small Business Development Center and its host, the HSU Sponsored Programs Foundation, specifically disclaims any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the information presented in this webinar. And this is me, Linda Fitzgerald. I spent 7 years at Microsoft where I learned to use Excel and PowerPoint as part of my daily life. And I've spent over 10 years as a financial analyst. I spent 7 years as a computer trainer in a private business and 7 years running my own business. So I have been out there. I have been using these products. And Excel, when I was a financial analyst, I used to tell people Excel is my second language. So here are some of the things we're going to touch on today. We are together for 1 hour, and notice there are a lot of items here. We're going to talk about formulas, charts, pivot tables, naming files, navigating page layout, finding files, backing up data, and learning from others. So there's a lot to cover. We are recording this, and you will have access to the recording. Emily will email a link to you in about 3 business days. So let's get started. I'm going to stop sharing here. Oh, we'll hold off on the questions for a second, and we will switch over to Excel. So now you should be seeing my Excel screen, and in the upper left-hand corner, it says formulas. There are a few different versions of Excel, and you can be using older versions from 2016, 2010, they still are basically pretty similar. Don't be surprised if your menu, the menu is the words across the top, or your ribbons, these buttons, might be a little bit different, but for the most part, Excel hasn't changed dramatically in the past few years. They do keep adding more features. I want to start by talking about formulas. I entered a few things here already, and here I have quantity and price and total. This is a typical formula that we use regularly. Now, to get quantity and price and for a total, we're going to multiply. So I'm going to click in the cell where I want the formula to be. I just clicked my mouse there. And when I'm typing here, I'm going to hit the equal sign. Then I'm going to take my mouse over the cell that has the first one that I want in the formula. I'm going to click on that. Notice when I do that up here, you're starting to see the formula build. And this is a multiplication. So multiplying is the asterisk key. If you're looking at your keypad, it's the asterisk over the 9. If you're looking and you don't have a keypad on your keyboard, it's the shift of the 8 key. And then I want it to multiply by the price. I click on that one. Now here is the formula. That little moving marquee is something that is temporary until I hit the enter key. Once I hit the enter key, the formula is entered, and you'll notice there's a value there. Now we see the number 186, but let's make this a little more accurate And let's help use Excel to make this look like what we really want it to be. For instance, with a price, I like my price to show the dollar sign and the cents. So I'm going to click on the cell that I want to change the format of. This is the default format, 15.5. And I'm going to go up here. See where it says general? On the right, there's a drop down arrow. I click on it and I'm going to choose currency. And now it changes to a currency format. Now this is also currency. So I'm going to go do the same thing on this cell. That looks better. That makes more sense. And what I want you to see here is when I click on this cell where the formula resides, we're seeing $186. But when I click on that cell, the value in the cell, go up here, the value is actually equal A5 times B5. A5 and B5, these are addresses for each cell. If you ever played Battleship, you know what I'm talking about. So there's a row and a number. The address for this cell right here is A, the letter first, 5. When I click on it, notice over here in the left side, A5 is the value of that cell, and this one is B5. So I just want you to understand the basics of a formula. So that is the formula. Now let me show you something else with formulas. Often in Excel, you're trying to add a number of numbers together. I'm going to create some. By hitting the enter key after I enter a number, I go down. So I'm typing in a number and I'm hitting enter. If you want your numbers to go across, you type a number and then you hit tab. So let me go back over here. I'm in column E and I have these 5 numbers above. There's a really cool button that makes it easy for you to sum those. Take your mouse up here and see the auto sum. Click on that. You get a moving marquee around all the adjacent numbers. And you'll see the formula. It's filling in the formula for you, which equals sum bracket E2 colon E6. The colon means capture everything between those cells. And now, because I like the range that is selected, I'm going to hit the enter key, and there's my number. In Excel, formatting is your friend. So one of the things that I want to do here is I want to help you know when you create something on a spreadsheet, what it is. So a typical thing in financial documents, when there's a total, is to have 1 line above and 2 lines below. I'm going to click on the value of 160, that entry. And now I'm going to go up here under where it says page layout, this area right here, bottom border. Notice when I hover over that box, it says what it does. Bottom border there. If I hover over the little triangle, it talks about borders. I don't just want a bottom border. I'm going to click on this drop down. I want top and double bottom border. Now, when I look at this spreadsheet in column E, it's very easy for me to be reminded that that's a total because I'm going to consistently use that format. Here's something else really helpful in Excel. And I used Excel for years before someone pointed this out to me. So I have to let you know, when you use Excel, you will have certain things you'll get very comfortable with, and there will be other tools right in front of your face and you're not looking at them. I've been there. Right now, I'm going to highlight. By highlighting, I click my left mouse button down and drag. I'm going to highlight E2 down through E6. When I do that, now go look down here at the bottom. Notice it says average of those numbers is 32. The count is 5 and the sum is 60. I use this all the time when I was doing financial analysis because I didn't necessarily always want to see the sums on the page, but I would be checking data to make sure it's accurate. You need to be aware of your data in Excel. There are all sorts of formulas you can create, and you can have an error in your formula. And if you're not validating the output to make sure you have it right, a number will show up and you don't know if it's right. What's nice about this particular formula, the 160, is when I change something above, the formula is dynamic. Every time I make a change, it's going to change. So that is our introduction to formulas. We are covering a lot of different topics today. I encourage you that if you want to go deeper on any of these topics, know that you can go to YouTube and search for Excel and whatever topic it is you want to learn more about, and you will find a bunch of 5-minute videos, 10-minute videos to give you exposure to that topic. So now I'm going to switch over to a chart. So here's information that I entered. I got it started, and it's a table. And I wanted to show you some neat features in Excel. When you have a month and you know you want to populate each of the consecutive months, I can click on January and see the little box in the bottom right corner. Notice how my mouse shape changes. When I'm over that small box, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see it better. When I zoom in over that box, I get a black plus sign. I hold my left mouse button down and go across, and it fills everything across for me. Let me go a little bit smaller. And I want to take that one more. And now we have December. I didn't have to do that typing. This is in here automatically. These are different lists that exist in Excel to make it easy for you. Here's another example. Let's say I want to list a whole bunch of things on the left side and I want to count them. I start the pattern, increment by 1, and drag down, and it will populate everything for me. So let's do a little bit more. We want to chart here. Here we go. I'm going to remove these. Now, I have the option to clear these, but what I can do is I can take a blank cell like A10, and I can drag that over all these numbers, and they go away. I just wanted it to look a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to scroll down a little, and I want to do a basic chart with you. Imagine each of these items are a quantity. And see how some of these columns are narrow and some, the letters are spilling off into, and you can't see the end of them. We can go over here and adjust. We can double click to the right side of the column, and it adjusts to what's called the best fit. In that case, for August, it made it smaller. Let's go to September. I'm going to go to the right side of the column, double click, and it got larger. The best fit adjusts to the longest entry. Now I'm going to chart this information. First, I want to select my data. Oops, I need one more. I don't have total. I'm going to deal with that in a little bit, but I'm selecting my information, and then I want to insert. Let me make a couple adjustments here. Here we go. Insert a chart. Gives me some different options of charts. Let's see what all charts are. And let's go with, you get to click on them and sample which one is showing what you want. Oops, let's not go there. Let's do, I like this one. Okay. Here's my chart. It is floating on top of the data, and I can move it. I'm holding my left mouse button down and moving it. Right now, I don't need to see the data behind it. So for the benefit of you viewing the screen, I'm just going to leave it like this. Now this chart is showing me, it gave each of my items, the toys, cards, and candy, a color, and you can see each month what's happening. And you can see, oh my goodness, December, lots of toys. October, lots of toys. October, what do you know? Lots of candy, surprise, surprise. This created a basic chart for you. And watch as I go here and I change information. I have to be careful not to go too high or I'll really mess with the chart. When I'm changing the information here, my chart is changing as well. So you don't have to recreate the chart every time. You create the chart one time, and as you populate the data, the chart will fill. Now we're going to put charts on hold for a minute, and let's go and talk a little bit more about data. This is an example that I wanted to teach you. I created a big data source I can run a pivot table off of, but I wanted to show you some tools that I'm using as I did this. So here I have the total, and this is going to be a copy of the formula that we talked about. I'm going to create a formula here of what was the total sale. So I have some data here, and a formula is going to equal, I hit the equal sign, the quantity, click on that one, times the unit price, and then I hit the enter key. Now notice these, I can go through and I can make each one the dollar format, but even better, I know everything in column E is going to be dollars, and I know everything in column F is going to be dollars. So why don't I just take care of that all at the same time? Go up here, currency, done. Now this is pretty neat. This formula equals D6 times E6. So it equals 2 cells to the left times 1 cell to the left. I can drag this down the same way I dragged across January and had it populate months. When I drag this down, look what it's doing. It's changing. This is called relative reference. There's absolute reference and relative reference. Relative reference takes into account what is happening in relationship to that cell. So this total, it is saying a relative reference, 2 to the left times 1 to the left. And when we copy that down, again, it's 2 to the left times 1 to the left, 2 to the left times 1 to the left. So that's why it's able to change all the time. Now, an absolute reference, I'm just going to touch on this, but you can search on it if you need to. An absolute reference would be, what if you had to refer to something at the top? Maybe it said discount, and you applied a discount of 15%. Oops, we don't want that to be dollars. We're going to go over here and change it to percent. If you wanted to bring that into a formula, you would need what's called an absolute reference, meaning always, no matter where you are, go to cell F2. And with an absolute reference, the way they refer to that differently in the formulas, they put a $sign around each side of the letter. Just going to give you some exposure to that. Absolute reference is the term you want to learn. So write that down. You may want to search that on YouTube for some more examples. So I'm going to go to the data source that I created, and I'm going to create a pivot table off this. What I did for this data source is I wanted to have something that I could show you a pivot table. And a pivot table, the first time I saw one, I didn't understand the concept until I saw it in action. So if you're a little confused by this, don't worry. Once it's in action, you'll have a better understanding. What I am showing here is the date, the rep name, I just gave them initials, the product, the quantity, unit price, and total sale. I'm going to select the entire range here. So I click on the top one, the top leftmost entry, and then Control-Shift-End highlights my complete series of data, which takes me all the way down to row 164. Once the data is selected, I'm going to click on Insert, Pivot Table, and now it has a Create Pivot Table dialog box. I'm going to answer some of the standard questions and just stick with the format. And it says, select a table or range. It is showing the range I already selected. Notice the beginning data source is what I've named the tab. And the tabs, you can change the tab names by double clicking on them. And then the $A, $5. This is an absolute range. See how it has a $sign on each side of the letters. That is showing the range. I've already selected it, so I don't need to do anything there. Here I get to choose. Do I want the pivot table to be in a new worksheet or right next to this data on the existing worksheet? I'm going to choose a new worksheet and say, okay. It opened up a new worksheet. It does not have a name. And over here, let's see. Let me move this a little bit. Can I? Oh, I'm going to go back. I'm going to try something a little different. We'll keep it here. Oh, destination is not valid. Oh, I see why. Here we go. Nothing quite like live training. Okay. Now we get to start putting things where we want them. And what's really funny is this dialog box is not showing like I expected. There we go. That's a little better. So now we have these different fields. We have date, we have rep, we have product, we have quantity and price and total sale and months. So let's drag these down into our pivot table. And what might we want to see? We'll probably want to see the total sale by rep. And as I'm building this, notice things are showing on the side. Now, total sale, that number, you know, I really like that number to be a dollar amount. Value field settings. Number format. Here we go, currency. That's better. Look at the reps. Oh my goodness, they were really selling. So, but let's look at some specifics. Let's learn a little bit more. Let's take the month and put the month across the top. I now can cut my data all sorts of ways. And I'm just dragging these elements around. I'm not going to move them for a second. I want to give you a chance to look at the pivot table itself. So right now, on the top left side, you're seeing the reps initials. You're seeing each month. On the top, you're seeing their total, and below it, you're seeing the detail. So notice across from the initials, their total is appearing above their numbers. Now, this might be a level of detail we don't want. So let's watch. I'm going to drag the product up. And now we're looking at the totals for each person by month with a grand total. And now I have this, what's called page up here. Within the page, I can just choose one product, cooktops. Let's see, how did they do selling cooktops? And you can see who did best. Over here, you hit a point where you can sort, you can do so much with this pivot table. And you can actually get charts in here as well. So let me go back to showing everything. And I am going to allow you time for questions. So I'm touching on a number of things right now. And the beauty of you showing up for this live training is you are going to be the ones that determine what questions we go deeper on and how we talk more about it. So let's select this chart. And with this data, we'll choose a chart. Now notice this chart is off of the pivot table. The chart we created 20 minutes ago was based off data, but this one is working right off the pivot table. So what's really nice, the pivot table has great ability to show you numbers, but it's kind of hard to visualize. As soon as you bring these colors in and you have the months and you have the reps, much easier to understand your data. So at this point, I am going to pause for a moment for questions. I realize I've covered a lot. We're not quite halfway through, but I wanted to check in with you. Emily or David, can you let me know what's getting asked in the chat?
Okay, so far there's no questions in the chat.
Okay, great. So we've talked about basic formulas. We've talked about the introduction to charts and pivot tables. So now I want to talk about a couple other things I mentioned in the agenda.
Emily or Linda?
Yes.
We just got a question. Can you show us again how to create a table off of pivot table in comparison to off the data?
Okay, so I'm going to delete the one that's here. And right now, see how it has these little white circles around it? That means it's selected. I'm going to hit the delete key. Right now, my mouse is not inside the pivot table. So I want to click in the pivot table, and then I want to choose Insert. And notice these pivot table items on the side are grayed out because I'm already in a pivot table. But if I go over here, recommended charts, there's other charts over here as well. We'll try this one. So I just clicked on Insert and I chose over in the, see how it says charts right here? Within here are all your different options for charts. And as data changes, your chart will change. Because this chart knows to run off this data. So as you change the pivot, you're going to change the results in your chart. So now I want to talk with you about naming your files. You don't really want to go, you want to keep some helpful words in your files to help you know what you're looking for. Now you can search for items within the file, which is really helpful. For instance, if you say, I have no idea what I named this file, you can just search for some unique entries that are in it. Granted, searching for January is not that helpful because that's going to be in most of your files. But if you have a certain client that you worked with on a file and you have to search your collection of files to find that particular one, use a word that is unique within it. I encourage people to use file names that describe the project you're in, the client you're working on, the month and year, if those are specific to you. That way, when you're sifting through and you're looking at files later, you don't have to open the file to have a good idea of what it is. For instance, I might create a file that says 2021 Q2 financials. And I will show everything for, the second quarter of my year, and I will have all of that in one place. It's very easy. And then I'm consistent in naming them. When I name files, if they're going to be a lot of files I'm looking at that year, it's helpful if you're going to date them. It's very nice when you put the year first and then the month by numbers. So 2021 07 01. Because if I put in July, January, if I put those words in, it's not going to sort for me in the manner that I'd like it sorted by date. But if I date the file name in the intro, it's very easy for me to sort them and get them in that order. What I find very helpful is for files that you print out. What I love to do with files is we're going to go into page layout for a minute. So I notice I clicked on page layout and the menus up here changed, the ribbon as they call it. The menu are the words, the ribbon are the icons. Page setup here, I'm going to click on this little pop-out button, and that opens a dialog box. My page setup dialog box. I get to choose if I want the printout to be portrait or landscape. Most of what I do in Excel is landscape because I'm looking at it on a computer orientation. Adjust to 100%, that's okay. My margins, sometimes I center things horizontally or vertically. Header, footer. I have saved myself so many times here by consistently going to the footer, creating a custom footer. And for the footer, I put in there, insert file name, and then I put in a space and a hyphen and a space, insert tab name. And then I say okay and okay. When I print this particular sheet, now right now it says sheet 4. Let me double click on this and change the name. Oh, that's already taken. We'll put a 2 on it. We'll just call it 2. Okay. When I print this page right now, I'm hoping this is going to show for you. There we go. Notice the bottom of my page. The worksheet, the workbook I have is Excel Beyond the Basics workbook. And then hyphen space, the tab name, which happened to be the number 2. I make this printout I look at it in 6 months. Gosh, what did I name that file? I want to go back to it. I want to use it again. There's the file name. It's really easy for me to search on. So that is designed for the people that still have paper in their office. We aren't at the paperless office yet, but that has been very helpful, and that has helped me many times. And navigating the page layout, I want you to spend a little more time in here. So like I said, we've already selected page layout in the menu. There are different themes. That's something that you're welcome to go into by using YouTube and other features to explore that. We have the margins, the page orientation, whether it's portrait or landscape, the size of the paper, print area. Now, print area in this particular page, if I'm printing something out, I might not want the data. So I might choose my print area to be the chart only and not show the data. When I would do reports for financial board reviews, I always wanted to show the data. So I would make sure my printout showed all this detailed data as well as the visual below it. You can insert page breaks. Let's see, I'm going to go over it back into this layout again. Here we have more details on the margins, which I showed you a minute ago, header, footer. Now, again, you can put in a header that you want to use regularly. Sometimes that's a great place to put your logo. And then the sheet. Print area, that is what's going to show up on what you print out at the end. Rows to repeat at the top or on the left side. An example of when you'd want to do this is if you're printing out 10 pages of data. And on the second page, you want the header to repeat. That would be how you'd use this. And here are your grid lines. Will they print or not? Are you printing it in black and white? How are you going to print multiple pages? If you have a lot of data here, how do you want it to be oriented? So we talked about navigating the page layout, finding files. That is file open. And in here, I have a whole bunch of other files I've worked on. In here, I'll type up in the search function what I want to look for. And I might type in there the name of the file. I might type in there a unique name that I know doesn't appear in a lot of my files, just in a few, and search, because it's not just searching the file name, it's searching contents of the file. So that is how you can search and find things. Backing up data. You can work so hard on an Excel spreadsheet and chart and be really happy with it, and something happens to your laptop and you've lost it, or you accidentally delete it, or something goes wrong. Think about a process for yourself of backing up your data on a regular basis. Some people back up things to the cloud. Great, but don't let that be your only backup. What if they have a problem? And yes, a lot of them can revert back to previous versions, but I would like you to have your own backup in some format. Do not rely on a third party to do it for you. It's your data, it's your business, it's the choice that you make. So consult with someone who knows technology and get some advice from them on the best way that you can back up your data. For me, I have an external hard drive. I actually have a few of them. I rotate through them. When I worked at Microsoft, we used to back up data to external drives, and we would send them to other sites so that we never had the data in the same place. And granted, this was before the cloud. So now we have the ability to back things up in the cloud. But do think of, if you missed this file, how painful would it be to start over? Sometimes people will email a file to themselves just because they know they can go back to their sent email to get access to it. If that's delicate information, you may not want to do that. So think about what is the smartest way for you to hold on to this data and keep it safe and keep it private for you. There is the ability to put passwords on spreadsheets. Be very careful there, because if you lose your password, no one can get into it for you. So do be careful of that. Most companies, what they do is they put security on a server, and they determine through the server who can and can't get access to the data, as opposed to locking any particular file. So do be careful. Passwords can bite you when you forget what they are. This is not a system where you can say, I'd like to reset my password. You simply will not be able to get in the file any longer. I also want to talk about your ability to learn from other people, or in this case, technology, other forms of training. templates are amazingly helpful. You can go out to Google and you can type in Excel template, and it will often take you to Microsoft's own templates in Excel. Let it know what you want to create. It might be an invoice. It might be a chart. It might be, gosh, they have so many options to choose from. And they have templates for all their different software packages, a PowerPoint template, a Word template. Look at what's already available. Sometimes that's really helpful for some formulas when you're trying to determine some sort of formula. Go see what's already out there. And I find in Excel, the way you learn it is to just get in there and play with it. And instead of starting it from scratch, like I did for this file, if you can start with a template or maybe a file you've already had and then play with that, I recommend if you're going to play with a file, put the word junk in the front of the file name. That will remind you it's a junk file. You're just playing with it. It's a test, and you will not accidentally play with a file that was not meant to be sampled in that way. Some things you can find helpful are conditional formatting. For instance, with conditional formatting, you might determine that any number, look at the chart that I have up there, the pivot chart. You can go into conditional formatting and say any number below 5,000 make red, any number above 10,000 make green. You get to determine what the conditional formatting will be for you. And there's a lot of layers to conditional formatting. I am not going to go into that right now. I know you can see a number of YouTube videos on that topic. An idea for a template might be an expense report. Some people do expense reports. They have a small business and they do expense reports each month for their business. A great template where you can go in and look at what some examples are. I used to use the formal process for expense reports, and I find keeping that process has been really helpful for me as I do it as a single business owner. So I have now touched upon a lot of different topics, and we are almost 40 minutes in. And I wanted to check in with you. Is there anything that you'd like to talk more specifically about?
So Linda, there was one question
Yes.
in the chat. They had a question about if they type in January at the top.
Yes.
So it's just been copying January across. They're wanting to know how to be able to do that as a sequence instead.
Okay. So I am going to add a new blank worksheet. And the way I do that is I'm going down to my worksheet. See all the tabs on the bottom? There's a plus sign on the right. I click on that. It's a new worksheet. And I think I'm going to do what you're asking, and feel free to elaborate if I didn't quite address this right. So I'm going to type out January, and I can drag it to the right. Now, here's what's nice. There are other options too. I can type just the abbreviation and drag that to the right, but I also can drag it down. And it will loop through. So if I keep going, it just keeps repeating. And I don't even have to start at January. It knows this is a list. Maybe your fiscal year starts in March, and you can drag that. And you know exactly when to let go because it tells you what month name it is. Is that what you mean, Emily? Is that what they meant by loop? How it will go back to the beginning?
I think so, or they might be having issues with it just when they drag it, it just keeps saying January, January, January.
Oh, okay. There are, depending on the version of Excel that you're on, there can be a couple different keystrokes you can do. Sometimes if you type on, if you hold the control key or you can get some other options. Let's see. They might not have lists set up. These are default lists that come with most versions of Excel. And what's neat about this is you can create your own. Let me see if I can remember where this is hiding. Oh, this is a great feature for you actually to learn. So let's go up to search. We're going to type list. What does it have? Nope, that's not it. This is where we play a little bit of a game of, this is why when you go into YouTube, you kind of need to know the right thing to populate. Could not find. List autofill. Series, file series or pattern. Let's see. I do not know that one off the top of my head. I am not seeing where it is. It's been a while since I have been digging in behind things. Let's see what we can find. This is the fun part. This is where it's kind of like an archaeological dig, but it can be frustrating instead of fun when you're trying to do it with time constraints. I am not finding that phrase. It's buried in here. Yeah, I don't have the answer to that one right now. Would have to do some digging around in YouTube and find someone who can help us with that. And you could probably go to YouTube, type in January, February, March, Excel, auto populate, and it would probably find it for you.
On the home page over to the right, when you go to the home tab and then go to the right, you'll see auto sum and fill. It might be in that fill. I've used that before to do series.
Oh, okay.
A little bit more to your left, one more over to your left. See where it says auto sum and then fill underneath.
Oh, here in fill. Okay.
That's what I've used before to do series.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because you can set up your own series. So the standard series that we have, oh, I see what they've done is they've renamed it. I haven't been in here for a while. The days of the week are the same thing. You type in Sunday or any day of the week and you drag it to the right and it will grow. What I find that I was using a lot in the corporate world with series that is also in there is Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And you might have a typical series for you where you find you're typing your products. You might have 7 products and you're always typing those so you can create a series. Thank you, by the way, for pointing me over here. Let's go in and look at this. Linear growth date autofill. So yeah, so this would be something that you could go to YouTube and to Excel and look at a quick video on the series. But with the days of the week, it does the same thing. Are there other questions in the chat? Or if you have a question, please put it in the chat or feel free to turn on your microphone and ask, and I'm happy to dive in for you.
Yeah, there's none in my chat.
Okay. In that case, perhaps someone's typing right now, but what I will do is I'm just going to go through and show a couple things that you might find valuable that you maybe haven't stumbled upon yet. We talked about this in the class that I taught before, but this is my #1 favorite feature is the format painter. When you have something that you're doing a lot, let's create this word Sunday. Let's say that it's very common for me in my documents to make something bold and italics and 20 points. Now I need to double click here to make it fill. Maybe I do this all the time and I really like this format. Instead of having to go through and do those 4 clicks each time, I can click on this cell, click on the format painter. It picks that format up and allows me to place it somewhere else. And it just does it one time. If I want to do that over and over, I'm still on the format I want. This time I'm on the word Saturday. Instead of a single click, I double click. And I can paste it over and over in different places until I click on Format Painter to turn it off. That is one of my favorite features. Let's go over to Insert. I'm just glancing across to look at some things that I think you would find really helpful. We talked about page layout, formulas. I think we'll spend another minute on formulas there and some cells. Spell checker is always nice. I really recommend people spell check things before they share them. But let's go back to formulas. And I want to show you, we're going to go to the home page because I want to show you right here, formatting. It's not really formula, it's format. Let's spend some time there. The way that we format things, we can do things and make it hard for ourselves. For instance, we can type out a date, August 14th, 2021. You know, we can type that. It just takes us a lot longer. If instead we type the date, and maybe we don't want it to appear in that format. For financials, I like the number format, but if you want something to show up and you don't want to type all the extra, you change the format of the date. So it recognizes this as a date. And I'm going to go over here and I can go into more, or actually here's the long date. This is a good one. There's more number formats where you can go into all sorts of different layouts, but here's the short date it's showing right now. Let's go to the long date. I did not have to type all that information. I typed the simple date and it filled everything else in for me. These quick buttons here, they're buttons that we're using frequently. I often use the decreased decimal. For instance, when we go back over here to one of our earlier ones, let me see here, this particular column, we don't really need all those decimals, so we can highlight what we want to change, and we can go up here and decrease decimal. It does one at a time. It's just easier to look at that number. The zeros don't need to be displayed. And these are the frequently used ones on top. I can dive into more options and I can get very specific. I can go into fill color, borders, fonts, alignment, number, protection. Am I locking it? You can create a spreadsheet and lock it. So when people open it, they don't override numbers that you don't want them to type in. Something I like to do when I create a spreadsheet, and if you've seen me teach a class like this before, you've probably seen this. I might have something, I'm going to just create a quick file. I might set up a standard layout for a chart, and I don't want anyone to type in certain areas, but I want them to put entries in a certain place. So I will do this. I like pale yellow. The strong, bright yellow is a little hard on my eyes, so I like the pale yellow. I will go in here and I will tell people when I create a spreadsheet for someone else, I will tell them if the cell is yellow, I want you to type in it. And when I have a formula, right now, I'm going to put a formula right here, auto sum. Now notice there were no numbers around for it to capture. And it said, okay, well, I don't see any numbers above. You must want me to add what's on the left. I don't, but it's a moving marquee, so I can override it. I want it to sum the numbers above, even though there's nothing there. And I press enter, and right now it says that value is 0. I will make fonts blue and tell people, I'll put a little key on the top and I'll type blue text is a formula. Don't touch. And then I'll say type in yellow cells. And here, watch, I'll drag this all the way over and I'll go over here and I'll say total. And again, I'm going to create a formula. Oops, not there, down here. A formula. I don't want it to include the number 1. I want it to just be January, February, March, April, and I'll drag this down. And I want to capture the format that's blue. So I'm going to go to Format Painter and paste it over these. All right. So now when I give the instructions to someone, I'll say, only type in the yellow cells, and they'll put the numbers in. Oops. And you'll see it did all the work for me. So this can be very valuable. You might set yourself up with a spreadsheet for January, and then you can copy it over and over. So let's go to, I'm going to take this to a new worksheet. I want to show you something. I highlighted the area and then copied. I held down Control and hit C. I'm going to go to a new one. And I'm going to paste it here, Control V. I might want this to happen over and over. This will be my, we'll just call that January. I could call this January. And then I could have another one called February, and I might use it over and over. Granted, this isn't a great example with the headings I have on the page, but maybe these are products. Maybe this is product A, B, C, and D. And I'm going to have sales for all of those products. Now this is pretty slick. Watch this. Move or copy, create a copy. It called it Jan 2. And I can drag these tabs. Let's take Jan 1 and move it in front of Jan 2. And we're going to call this Feb. Now I have all these results. I can make my formulas cross over multiple spreadsheets. So I'm going to copy this again. We're definitely in an advanced class. I'm going to call this one Jan and Feb. And for this one, I can remove all of these entries. And I can create this. I can say the cell, I'm in the Jan Feb tab. This equals, I'm pressing the equals key. Go to my January one, hit the top one. Plus, look at the formula above. Go to my February one, hit the top one. So what this formula is saying up in this area, it says go to the January tab, click on cell B7, and go to the February tab, click on B7, enter. Now here I am. Watch how quickly I'm going to duplicate this. And these, I'm dragging the formulas. So this is the sum of these other two tabs. I love this because I can create a report for 1 month, and if each of the subsequent months have the exact same number of rows and columns, the layout of that little chart doesn't change at all, I can have a running total where I'm focused in the month, but I can have this total page that can show me where I am year to date at any moment. And then, my other months would be blank until I get to them. But this is just an example of how formulas can go outside of the current tab. They can even go into another workbook if you want to. You have to be really careful there. So just know that the ability to do that is available. It's just you have to be careful of when things update. So that is definitely an advanced topic. Anything new in the chat, Emily?
Yeah, so there's a couple things here. Someone had a question. How do you do if statements? So probably need to clarify that question a little bit. Let's see, the other question. Someone asked, how do you become certified to teach Excel, maybe as a Microsoft Office high school course, early college credits for students to leave with?
They're asking, like, how do you get the ability to teach it, or how do you get the best skills from it? Are they asking how to gain the skills or how to become a teacher?
It sounds like a little of both, maybe.
Okay. The best way to gain the skills is to be a user of Excel. When I used Excel for 10 years as a financial analyst, I got in there at such a granular level. And you know what? There are probably 50% of the tools available in Excel that just weren't necessary for me to use in my job. So there's a lot of ability to use a very powerful tool like Excel. Now, for me, I worked at Microsoft for 7 years and used it early on and have used it ever since. I do not have any kind of a certification to teach Excel other than I've been a financial analyst at major companies who have paid me for those skills. And because of my experience using it, people have asked me many times over the years to teach in it. In fact, I was a computer trainer at a company for quite a while. And my job was to teach people to use the computer, teach older people how to use Excel so that younger people wouldn't come in and take their jobs, because they had to be flexible and they had to be willing to learn the computer when they were older, and most of their life they did not need the computer. So it was a really interesting time for me to become a trainer. There isn't a certification needed from what I have seen and what I've done in Excel. There are different training programs. There are probably places that will give you certain certifications. If you want to become a Microsoft certified trainer, I believe they do have a process you can go through in order to do that, and testing that you need to do. They have a lot of different testing that Microsoft offers in order to be a trainer in one of their many different products. So you can certainly go out and go to Microsoft's website and look for a certification. There are probably other places that give some sort of, once you've completed a training, a certificate of what you've been taught. That's a little different. That's more like a graduation diploma of, yes, the employee has completed these courses and now they are able to use the product. So there's different levels of learning to do your job versus learning to teach someone else how to do their job. And we are down to the last 3 minutes. Is there another question?
So I don't see one in the chat, but feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question.
Sure, I am going to stop sharing my screen and come back to you, get my camera on. And I am going to go back to my PowerPoint screen actually, because I want to talk with you about the last couple slides that we have there. So let me go in and share that screen again. So here we are, the Shasta-Cascade SBDC, and we have moved recently. We're over on Sacramento Street in Redding, California. Like I mentioned earlier, we serve Shasta and Trinity counties in far northern California. Emily, who has been kind enough to handle the chat, here's her email for us. When people would like to work with an advisor through our Shasta-Cascade SBDC, we have them reach out to Emily, and there is our website, shasta-sbdcsc.org. If you are in Shasta or Trinity counties, Emily can meet with you over the phone, talk about what your needs are, and help sign you up for time working with an advisor. And if you're not in Shasta or Trinity counties and you are in the US, there is an SBDC office that serves you. You can go to americassbdc.org/find-your-SBDC and find the one that is near you and serves your area. There are many SBDCs and we all have specialists in different areas. There's a number of different ways you can find us. We're on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube, but also know with YouTube, we have other Excel classes that I have taught that you can look out on our channel and watch. And also there are plenty of other webinars out there for you to view and take advantage of regardless of where you're located. And Emily, would you please put in the chat for me the link to our survey if you haven't done that yet? We would love to hear what you think of this webinar. These webinars get better each time because you give us feedback. I would love to know, what could I have done better? I get better every time because I love to hear your valuable feedback for me. And what are the topics you would like to see us cover in future webinars? We create these webinars for you. We want to make sure we're covering the topics that are important to you. And with that, I see us as just about at the top of the hour. Emily, could you do me a favor and save the chat for us? if you have the ability to do that. If not, I can certainly do that. And I thank everyone for being with us today. Thank you for spending the time. Please do go out in Excel and play with it. Create the file. Remember, put the word junk in the file name and play with it. Try different things. Go to YouTube, search for whatever command you want to use in Excel. To remind you what we covered today, we talked about the power of formulas, introduction to charts, introduction to pivot tables. I'm giving you these phrases because these are things you can search in YouTube. Navigating the page layout, finding your files in Excel, backing up your data, finding templates, conditional formatting, and finding and downloading a template to practice with, such as an expense report or an invoice. Someone had mentioned a statement. You had mentioned Emily, and maybe they mean a financial statement. So you can search in Google or through Microsoft for an Excel financial statement and see some examples of what you can create. And also, often when you're using a tool such as QuickBooks, the data reports that you have can be downloaded to your PC in Excel. So it does all the hard work for you, and then you can play with it, create a chart, do some details for yourself in Excel. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'm so glad you were here. Look for an email from Emily in a few days with a link to the recording, and we look forward to seeing you in a future date. Emily, is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up?
No, I think we're good. Thank you all for coming.
There is a notice in the chat of, can you post the link here for the YouTube videos? And the best thing for you to do is you can go out to YouTube. Emily, I don't have the ability. Well, you know what? Maybe I do. Let me try. Let me see if I can go into my screen.
Now I can pull it up real quick.
And share that. We'll see if I can get there. Emily and I are racing to see who can get to it first. Oh, I got it. There we go. Go ahead and click on this link and you can get to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for showing up. Great question, Julie. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming, Mel.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. If you have any other Excel things you'd like to learn more about before you go, please put them in the chat. We'll save the chat again and we'll consider them for a future training. Emily, I'll give people just a moment in case they'd like to enter anything else in the chat. And we will wrap up in about 30 seconds. All right, one last saving of the chat. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you at a future date. Take care.